Hi everyone, this is Daria Piano. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is about various ways of how one can practice a difficult passage. If you are tired of mindless, simple repetitions over and over again, and you really want to have a strategy of how to approach a difficult passage in order to make your practice most effective, then this video is great for you. I will share my 10 ways of practicing. And these 10 come from my own experience, from what I've learned from my teachers throughout my pianistic journey. I will try to be as concise as I can. And I will also try at the same time to give you as many examples as I can to illustrate each point. So I will use a second camera for that. A quick reminder, this is a multi-chapter video. So if you'd like to watch all of the 10 ways to practice the passages, please refer to the other chapters as well. This is chapter 2. The first strategy has to do with going from simpler to more complex, simplifying, making the passage easier to handle, and then adding more and more layers as you become more and more comfortable with it, and going to the original that is written in the score. There are multiple ways of doing it. I'll give you some examples. You can shorten a passage. You can use octave displacement. You can eliminate notes. You can have breaks in between the segments in order for your hand to change the position comfortably. You can use transposition, that's a little more advanced. With double stop passages, you can change to a single line connection, practicing instead of practicing two lines going into two lines, or practice one of the lines going into the other one of the lines. With the double stop passages, you can simply practice single note element out of the two notes, where instead of two notes connecting to two notes, you will have only one line connecting at a time and then the other line. And lastly, you can change to easier dynamics. For example, something in an extreme dynamic range is much harder than something at the mezzo forte or mezzo piano level. And this one hopefully is understood without demonstration. The examples I'm going to give are going to be from Chopin's pieces and mostly from the Etudes Opus 10. So I will put some music for you to follow on the screen. Shortening a passage. Let's say this Etude number 1 has this long passage in the opening. And it's fatiguing for the hand in the beginning, so you can simply shorten it and make it 2 elements long. Practice that for a while, and once you get comfortable, increase by 1, and then another one. The same thing can be done with Etude number 8. Simply make it 2 or 3. And then 4. Eliminating notes. Again, same to etudes. Number 1, 4 notes is difficult. Particularly difficult is number 4 finger. And even more importantly, it's just this is already difficult. So you can just simply practice this. And I'm actually already combining it with another, with the rhythm as well. It's one of the combinations. And you can simply then do, because the 4 is the hardest finger in this chain, so you can add it last. So add the 2 then. And then add all 4. But the important thing is to retain the gesture that I need for 4. So I'm going to keep the same, that movement that I need. I'll keep doing it, no matter how many fingers, even if it's just 1. And the same thing can be done with number 8, for example, only these 3. Then you can do these 3, for example. And then you can add all 4. You can be creative. You can see which notes are the hardest, and those will be eliminated first. Try without them, and then add them at the end. Octave displacement. I can find 2 main reasons why this is a useful tool. One is because of the difference in weight between the lower keys and the higher keys. For example, some passages are very low and quite fast, like this passage here. And it requires a lot of finger strength and agility. By moving this passage an octave higher, it releases a lot of tension and becomes easier to reach that speed that you need. And by practicing it here a few times until you can reach the final speed in this octave, then it will open your hand to more agility when it goes to this octave here. The second reason why octave displacement works well is that it helps you avoid some strenuous hand position and get used to the movement first in a more comfortable space. For example, in this etude number 2, we start in this position where our elbow is literally in front of our body, and we have to be in that position in order to maintain best we can this alignment here, so we don't end up doing this, which is very bad and it creates tension and this is just super uncomfortable. So we try to align our hand and our forearm, and that just puts us in an awkward position. So by moving this passage simply here, where your elbow is in a very natural position already, that we can practice this finger movement here and then move it when your fingers become stronger, then the alignment is less of an issue. So here, right? Breaks in between. You have to choose the right segment between which you can break. For example, in this passage, the best place to break here is where you have the position of hand change. Slightly. It's a slight adjustment, but it will become easier if you have more time for it, right? And you can raise your hand high. This way you will bring more attention to the change by alleviating first the pressure, relaxing, being ready. This next example is from the Courtauld edition of the Chopin Etudes, where he gives exercises for each etude. And this is where he writes rests literally in between the segments. The original passage is like this. And so on. And where he writes the exercise, he has rests right there. And so on. So this way you have time to relieve your tension after this, right? And you have time to change your position. And the trick here is to use that extra time, the rest, to get to that next position quickly with your hand and then wait there for the attack. So like this. Instead of taking that whole time to transition, right? So you need to train quick transition and precise, accurate. Instead of this. You don't spend time in the air. You spend time on the key, prepared and waiting. Simplifying double stops to a single line connection instead, etude number 7, the opening passage. Instead of this, you can simply do the top voice alone. And then you can do the bottom voice. And then you connect. I am again maintaining the fingers that I use instead of doing whatever I want to, right? Sure, that's much easier, but I can't do that. The next example is also from the Courtauld edition of the Etudes, also number 3, where the original passage is double stops. And you break it down to double plus single stop, connecting only one of the voices. Very effective in making sure that this connection is really solid. But you see, I'm maintaining the fingering, the original fingering. I could easily just use thumb here, right? And do whatever I wanted with the fingering. But I can't, I need to practice precisely the fingering that I will use in the original. Same with the left hand. Transposition. This method is probably the most interesting, fun, but it's also a little challenging because you have to do some work in order to transpose. But this will help with such places where your original position is in such a key where your hand feels very uncomfortable, cramped, or tense for some reason, just because the key is not so comfortable. So you move it to more user-friendly key, like the simplest possible, and you really drill that movement, that motion, so your fingers are well acquainted with it and get comfortable before you move back to that original key. So for example, number 4 too, there's this, the very, again, initial thing. If this wasn't in C sharp minor, but was in A minor instead, wouldn't that be much simpler? And that way you can focus really on the motion, movement. Instead of being here, because it's quite uncomfortable. It's very close to the edge of the board, close to the black keys, fingers are cramped together, and this is uncomfortable for your 3 and 4. So a lot of trouble here. And plus you need to be doing the correct motion with your wrist, with your hand, and that's much simpler in A minor.
As always, thank you for watching and supporting my channel. I hope it was helpful. Please stay tuned for more videos and leave your feedback below if you would like to share it with me.